So, when I pulled this card from the pack, one I was hoping would actually be like 90% of the packs and be a total dud, I kind of felt like Leon S. Kennedy at the end of the original Resident Evil 2.
So, this is what everyone's been dying for.
The original Resident Evil 2, I can't believe I have to clarify that, but anyway, the reason I felt that way is because this here, Arid Mesa, is a Fetchland. It is the poster child for everything that has been going crazy with Magic lately. Now, quick breakdown of what a Fetchland is. What it does is when you put the Fetchland into play as your free land for the turn, you then get rid of it and pay 1 life to search your deck for either a Plains or a Mountain land card. It is, on the surface it seems like a pretty basic thing. You put this card into play and then you get rid of it to pull the card you actually want. It sounds pretty straightforward, sounds like a great thing to have in a multicolored deck. In fact, they made a card, which I got in that exact same pack, the Needle Verge Passageway and Pillar Verge Passageway, which does kind of the same thing. You can either play it on the red side to produce red mana like a mountain, or on the white side to produce white mana like a plains. Now, it sounds like this is like the better card, right? It's the fetch land, but without all of those added steps. But the funny thing is, it's these very added steps that make the fetch lands so powerful, because they can basically act like a giant domino to set off a whole bunch of other stuff. The fact that you have to go through your deck, the fact that you basically get to play a second land card. You can thin your deck by pulling the cards out of the deck. When you do that, thinning your deck makes you more likely to draw the cards you actually want, and it also gets rid of a basic land, which you do not want to draw at a critical moment. And the fact that you basically get to play 2 lands on your turn instead of 1 means that it activates landfall abilities twice. You see, all those added steps mean that it can be a powerful combo starter, and that is something that this pathway simply cannot do. This simply enters play and it's done. I mean, don't get me wrong, the pathway cards are still really, really good cards. They are a variable mana source that enters play untapped. That is an incredibly powerful ability, and it's obvious, it's a no-brainer 4 of to run in any deck that uses both of these colors. However, the reason they are not as strong as fetch lands is because of those added abilities. It's why this is a $5 card and this is a $60 card. This is power creep. Power creep is what happens, when cards escalate in power and previous cards become worthless. It's because a card like the fetch lands come out. So, because the fetch lands exist, every other special land card that gets released now gets compared to the fetch lands. Wizards is in a really tight spot because they can't really print something better than the fetch lands, but at the same time it's hard for them to print something not as good as the fetch lands because people really want these fetch lands. But the thing that makes these sinister is that Magic has kind of turned these fetch lands into a dangling carrot. I've talked in this channel before about the Secret Lair Ultimate Edition, which Wizards claimed completely sold out, which certainly came as news to my local game store, which still has all of their copies. But because these are essential cards, like the fact that they do all those additional things in addition to finding the land from your deck means that even monocolor decks benefit from them. So basically every deck in the modern format wants these cards. But Magic will not reprint them in any, real capacity because they want it to be something that they can dangle in front of their players. Like I said, it's really bad behavior. They say, oh, if you buy the Secret Lair Ultimate Edition, you'll get the fetch lands. Oh, if you buy these collector boosters, you might pull a fetch land. It's kind of a really gnarly, nasty way of selling their product. I mean, yeah, Konami does reprints of their cards too, but they tend to at least print them at a decent or respectable rarity. If they reprint a card, they tend to print it like 1 rarity rung down, or even put it in a starter deck or something. I know Ash Blossom still takes a lot of money, but it's in a starter deck now, so it's not as hard to get as it once was. But yeah, that's an example of power creep, and like I said, it's emblematic of how Magic has been going lately. It's a bit of an explanation behind how they see their product is how they treat the fetch lands, and seeing how a game treats its extremely rare cards can be very indicative of how they behave. Although, with that out of the way, let's finally talk about the episode proper, the one about, the good booster packs and the rarity and stuff. And because I did, episodes about rarity and about, booster packs and booster boxes, I am, of course, going to be following that up with a video about the games that do not use booster boxes. Now, fortunately, I have basically finished the script for that episode. It's nearly done. I'm mostly waiting for some of the physical items I need for the review to trickle in, but it should come out a lot more quickly than this video did. The fact that I already have everything written. These are a pretty fascinating thing. A lot of people, I think, kind of misunderstand what they really are, how they really work, and what their actual acronym is. I'm going to give you a spoiler right now. It's not LCG. But there's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about regarding these. They are basically exempt from my 7 Deadly Sin rule number 6, for example. They come in this big old box, unlike the slim and trim trading cards that people expect for trading card games. You can do a lot more with these kinds of games that you could never even think of doing in a trading card game. It's gonna be a great video. I talked a bit about, booster product, and of course a lot of people said, well, people like Simo and like Tolarian Community College, they say that you should always buy singles. And I have thoughts on that. It certainly depends on the kind of collector you are. I mean, there's absolutely merit in purchasing things from the secondary market. If you have like a specific deck build in mind, or if you're only trying to get 1 or 2 stray cards, buying random product to try to obtain like 1 or 2 cards is kind of lunacy. But like I said, the secondary market definitely has value if you're one of those kinds of people. However, what I like to do is buy a box of the product. If I'm going to be serious on like playing a card game, like I really want to like put some money into it, get some good cards, build a deck, I first buy a box, and then I start buying off of the secondary market. Because if you buy by the box, there's so much fun you can have here, because I actually enjoy like the social collaborative effort of all of like the exchanges and the mutual deck building. I actually think that's a lot of fun, because if you get just yourself, you get a box, but if you also get like 3 other friends who each also bought a box and they each have their own deck that they want to make that's different from everybody else's, by the end of that night, all of you guys should be pretty dang close to having the deck you want nearly finished. It's a wonderful experience to have. When you buy a box, if you get the cards you want, that's great. If you don't get the cards you want, that's fine. Now you should have a bunch of other stuff that you could exchange to get the cards you want. It's part of the trading card game. It's also why I said I like it when games don't necessarily include a full playset of everything, because now my entire collection is more valuable. All of the cards in there are worth more. Isn't that great? But again, regarding this, another thing I like to do with the booster boxes is I kind of like to let them determine the path of the deck I'm going to make. Like, you must be like water, follow the flow of destiny to find what you really want to make, and thus no box will be a waste. Like with the Digimon card game, I opened my box and it was $80 for the box. I managed to get it for suggested retail, but I got well over $80 worth of cards towards the purple deck. I got so many of the cards that work for the purple deck that I wound up building the purple deck, and I was able to do it for a good value because I basically followed the instructions on the box. The same thing happened with the Monarch booster box that I've opened here. I haven't uploaded the video for that yet, but that is coming soon. I think you guys will be pleasantly surprised by the results of that box. But like I said, there is certainly merit for random product, but it's good advice to say buy the singles. I still say support your local game store. Buy a box first if you really want to seriously invest in a game. I think a lot of the reasons that people like Simo and Tolarian Community College are telling people to buy singles is because right now there is so much going on with people opening random boosters and going like, whoa, I got this big hit. Like I've seen like so many thumbnails where a guy's just like that, I'm kind of sick of it. But of course, that is not the thing in that video that was the most divisive. That would, of course, be my talk about loot boxes. A lot of people were really defensive of loot boxes, saying that, oh, yes, they are exactly like booster packs. The booster packs use the same sorts of exploitation techniques and yada yada yada. Like I said, really only Magic uses the same kind of exploitation techniques. Most other games, they tend to see the secondary market where people can just buy the singles as competition, and so try their hardest to make sure that their box experiences and pack experiences really feel like they're worth it. With a loot box game, however, I mean, they don't really even exist in the same legal area, the contents of a loot box versus the contents of a booster pack. So, I mean, I mentioned a lot of things, like I talked about like paywalls and cost power balance and incomparable features and, you know, alternative currency, price disparity. But what most people fixated on were the fact that the cards were physical and the secondary market. I don't think people like disregarded my other arguments out of hand because of anything malicious. I think they fixated on the physical goods and the secondary market because those are the subjects that get brought up the most in this conversation. And I figure, you know, let's do a proper breakdown of it now. So physical permanence, that is a pretty big one, because after you buy some cards at the local card shop, the publisher of the game no longer has any say over what you do with those cards. Konami cannot, for instance, run in and rip up your 4th Blue Eyes White Dragon or cast your Exodia into the sea. They have no say over what happens to the cards you just bought because those cards are officially your property, and the publisher has no sway in what happens next. Because those cards are your property, you can do with them what you want. I mean, sure, the game can say that you're not allowed to bring some of your cards to use at their, like, official sanctioned events, but they otherwise have no influence over your cards at all. They cannot, for example, come to your house to confiscate your collection. You can do whatever you want with these cards because they are your property. You can play with them, you can trade them, you can collect them, you can sell them, you can light them on fire, you can shove them up your nose. The games publishers can't stop you because it's your property. On the other hand, the items obtained in loot boxes or, you know, gacha games, are they really your property? And I'm not just talking about the gacha games that simulate trading card games like Hearthstone or Gwent. Those are astonishingly usually a bit less problematic because they are, like, directly competing with trading card games, and so they need to make sure that their things are just as satisfying as trading card games. They also tend to be priced accordingly, but I'm talking about any game that uses a loot box, because every time one of their makers, one of their publishers is dragged before a board of inquiry, the defense they always make is, oh, we are not gambling, we are just like the surprise eggs and the Yu-Gi-Mon cards. And that's why I talk about all of the gacha games, bring them all down together. But the thing about the gacha games is after you give them your money and they give you whatever's in the loot box, is that your property? Legally, that's kind of dubious. This is part of a larger debate about digital versus physical video games in general. How much do you own of a game you download off of the internet? How much do you own of the loot box contents you have paid for? Because even though you've paid for them as though you've bought playing cards, they are still hosted on the game's servers. The game still has full control over the fate of the cards in there. They can tell you what you can and cannot do with them. They can, you know, take away individual cards. Like I said, they can delete duplicates and frequently give you like a pathetic little refund of some in-game currency. That would be the popsicle I used in my video. They can ban you from the game for any reason and revoke your entire collection without a refund. They can shut down and revoke everybody's collection without a refund because those contents are technically not really their property. You haven't purchased property, you have purchased the privilege to borrow their property. So, like I said, that physical permanence versus the digital goods puts it in a very different sort of legal space. The The publisher has full control. They can control how you play with the stuff on their game, how you can store the stuff in their game, how you can keep the stuff in their game, and how you can acquire the stuff in their game. Which brings us to our next subject, and that is the secondary market. Now, because actual trading cards are physically permanent and your property, you are allowed to sell them to whoever you want. The publisher has no say. And it also means that it is entirely possible for somebody to acquire their entire collection without ever touching a single random product. Tell me, if somebody is able to do that, just bypass the randomness entirely, is that gambling? If I were to, sell this copy of Arid Mesa to a friend of mine, have we committed a gambling? Well, not according to the law. According to the law, what we have done is exchange of goods, because, again, this copy of Arid Mesa is my property. I can do with it whatever I want. And believe it or not, the fact that these cards are your property and you can freely sell them or to whoever you want for money is one of the things that makes trading card games not gambling. Yes, I said the fact that you can sell these cards for money is one of the things that makes it not gambling. And I know what all of you are thinking right now. Isn't the most common defense of loot boxes being, loot boxes aren't gambling because you're not able to cash out? Your sentence is incomplete there. Cash out with whom? Because believe it or not, that matters a whole lot, especially in the eyes of the law. Like I said, if I sell this copy of Arid Mesa to my friend, we have just done exchange of goods. That's not gambling. I mean, purchasing cards is not gambling. Selling your cards is not gambling. Buying single cards is not gambling. Buying huge numbers of cards with the intention of selling them for profit is a gamble, but it's not gambling. Now, whenever somebody uses the term cash out, what they mean is cashing out your poker chips with the house. The house. Not your fellow poker players, but the institution that sets the rates and exchanges in the first place. Like how a casino works. You go to a casino, or the house as they're usually called, and you buy the house's special casino chips. You go to the house's tables and you play the house's games by the house's rules. And when you're done playing the house's games by the house's rules at the house's tables, you take your house's chips and go back to the house to give the house back the house's chips in exchange for some of the house's money. Do you get it? The house controls everything. The house sets the rules, the house sets the exchange, the house tells you what you're allowed to do, how you're allowed to do it, and how you're allowed to exchange. Your continued ability to play with and exchange the special casino chips is entirely at their discretion. They control everything. But wait, didn't I just talk about how the publishers of the TCGs have virtually no control over what you do with your collection? One of the big things about gambling is the fact that you would, get your money back from the institution that's setting the odds and the rates. You give me some of your money, and if you win this game of chance, I'll give you a bunch of money back. So while selling this copy of Arid Mesa to a friend of mine would not be gambling, if I, however, sold this back to Magic the Gathering's manufacturer, Wizards of the Coast, for $60, because they set the randomness rates, then that would be gambling. So people talk about the fact that you cannot cash out. It's the fact that you cannot cash out with the house. But hang on. The way I was describing a casino before, I feel like that sounds kind of familiar. So they make you, in order to play their games, they force you to purchase their special casino chips. You mean purchasing the alternative currency you find in a loot box or gacha game? And then you take that currency and play the games by their rules. So you have to do what they say you can. Like in a casino, you cannot, for example, sell your winning poker hand to a random passerby unless you want to have a nice long conversation with lovely Miss Vicky and her 5 extremely large friends in the back room. The house controls everything. The Gacha games, when I obtain like gacha prizes, the only things I can do is like what the game allows me to do. I can only store them, I can only play with them. I cannot, for example, give my additional gacha prizes to a friend. I mean, there are some games that do allow you to exchange, not sales. You're not allowed to actually transfer money for items in the Valve server because that runs a chance of running afoul of gambling laws, which is why it's all done by a third party in this legally dubious space. But that is, again, entirely at Valve's discretion. They could pull the switch and shut off the ability to swap hats in Team Fortress anytime they want. It is at their discretion. The house controls everything. So you have to buy their special currency. You have to play the games by their rules. You're not allowed to do anything with your collection that they don't say is okay. The only thing you really can't do is cash out. They're like a casino, kind of, where you can do everything but get your money back. I'm not the only person to make this observation. A lot of people have pointed out that a lot of gacha games and loot box games and systems like that use the trappings of casinos. And it's kind of weird that they have to deny that. They say they're not gambling, but they sure do borrow a lot of the trappings of the gambling house. It's like the only thing that makes them not gambling is the fact that you can't exchange items for anything. So they're like a stingy casino. I mean, even Chuck E. Cheese's at least lets you take some toys home. But yeah, like I said, I'm not the first person to make this observation. A lot of people have made this sort of comparison. And a lot of things like the loot boxes kind of operate like the one-armed bandit. They exploit the fear of missing out. Oh, you have to log into the game every day or you'll miss out on your login bonuses. You have to play the game for a while every day or you'll miss out on your daily logins. You have to play like the game like obsessively all week or else you'll miss out on the weekly bonuses. They condition you to do that with a cavalcade of clocks that are constantly counting down to doomsday. So they put pressure on you to say, oh, you're going to miss out on all of this stuff. Whereas that really doesn't work for a trading card game. It's like, oh, this trading card product is only available for a limited time. Yeah, sure thing, Gramps. I'm sure it'll show up in eBay a couple of weeks after all of them have disappeared. The secondary market means that there really isn't anything permanently missable in trading card games the way there are for things like gacha games. Gacha games do love to have these things called banners where they make it so there's things that are only obtainable during this time for more FOMO. And the way they make you like log in every day and play the game like a habit, that's habituation, to make you come back, to turn it into a daily thing that you do. And I know a lot of people talked about it's like, oh, you get like free pulls and free gachas in these games. Well, the thing about that is they usually give you a few like at the start, first hits free. But if you want to get like a good rate of additional pulls, you essentially have to play that game every waking moment where you are not at work. I know this. I have played so many gacha games. You guys know that I have played the games like the One Piece game, like Fate Grand Order, the really, really infamous one. I actually had to quit gacha games because they were occupying so much of my time that I wasn't getting work done on the channel. A lot of these games, if you try to play them for free, you are like for the special weekly events that give you those sorts of cool rewards that you use to make those free pulls, you have to like play constantly the entire week. They like give you barely enough time if you play constantly to get through all of the content and get those freebies if you don't put in any money. A lot of games will also use paywalls. This is where the products you get for free just aren't good enough to progress with the game anymore because most gacha games don't have it be player versus player. It's player versus environment, and they will just throw this big difficulty spike in front of you to say, okay, it's time to pay now. I can't count how many reviews I've seen of Genshin Impact that basically boil down to tons of fun until you hit the wall. It's a very common sight of there. And it's, again, these sorts of things are things that trading card games cannot really do. They cannot really exploit the limited time factor because the secondary market means those things will technically always be available as long as there's somebody willing to sell them. They definitely cannot exploit habituation because you buy cards whenever you decide to. There's nothing saying, oh, you better buy the cards now or you'll never see them again. I mean, sure, they can put things on sale, but every business puts things on sale. It's not the same as, say, a gacha product that really does go away and which you can only acquire through loot boxes. So you have to pull that one-armed bandit time and time and time again until you get that 0.06% chance character that you really want. There's no way to go out of your way and, you know, buy it off of a friend or something. Or if I get an extra one, I'm not allowed to give it to a friend. It gets shredded up in front of me. But there's another thing that really only gacha games and loot box games can do that a trading card game can never do, and that is what the industry calls hot state. You've, like, played a gacha game and then you've been struck with a game over, and then the game says, hey, you can pay a little bit of cash to not lose all your progress and manage to beat the boss. Now, if you do it, I believe in you. There's another gacha game I played that actually has, like, a Pokeball mechanic, but the first 3 Pokeballs are basically free, but any more you want to use, you have to pay for it. So the game will go like, oh no, all of your Pokeballs broke, you better put down some money to get the Pokeball to capture this super rare creature, or else it's gonna get away! Oh, pressure, 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 pressure! It's how they get people to, you know, spend impulsively. They have, like, sudden sales that only last, like, 5 minutes, or they make you pay after getting a game over, or they make you pay to continue the progress, or they make you pay after you've used up all of your free lives and stuff like that. It's that kind of pressure, that sort of hot state pressure that gets people to buy, you know, on the spot, that a trading card game really cannot do. For a trading card game, if you want to get more product, you have to, like, get up and go to the store, and then you have time to cool your head and think, ooh, do I really want this? Or you have to, like, order off of Amazon and then wait a long time for the thing to show up. You don't have hot state when it comes to trading card games. You do not have FOMO when it comes to trading card games, at least not to the, like, massive extent that you can get in games that really can make something disappear forever. You have full control over everything you own, and you do not have to go to a casino-styled environment to get your cards. And a lot of those things, that really, like, exploitative pressure, like, I didn't really bring it up because I thought it was, like, fairly well known, but there are so many stories of people who sort of fall prey to these sorts of things, particularly people who are, like, compulsive gamblers, compulsive spenders. They really fall into the hole on these things because it's just so easy to pull that lever one more time in these gacha games that they have kind of ruined themselves. I haven't really heard of somebody, like, ruining their lives over, like, actual trading cards, unless what they are doing is, like, purchasing tons of trading cards with the intent to sell them for profit. And can we talk about that? Like, there's, like, the secondary market right now, the market for cards has gone insane. You guys know how, like, Pokemon cards have become really difficult to find. There was this really shameful display of people, like, busting into Walmart like it was Black Friday to fight over the Pokemon cards like they were Tickle Me Elmos. And honestly, I hate it. I despise it. In case you didn't notice based on my channel, I am the kind of guy who believes that packs should be opened and games should be played. You don't, like, take sealed booster boxes and sit on them hoping for their value to rise. You're supposed to play with those cards. So, frankly, I am not a fan of all of this inflation that's been going on in the card game universe lately, driven by companies like Magic, driven by a lot of people who do the unboxings and skip straight to the money cards rather than, you know, talking about, it's like, oh, hey, this card is not a rare, but, you know, it's got some really cool things it can do, like, but, you know, like I do with my hour-long unboxing videos. Yes, so was this one. You can quote me on this. I cannot wait for this bubble to pop so the scalpers dump their stock for cheap and we can all get back to playing card games again. Can I get an amen? Come on. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that. You can look online about the sorts of stories that come out of loot boxes. Like just recently, regarding like microtransactions and alternative currencies, there's this huge settlement with Epic Games over Fortnite, of all things. There have been settlements in Korea about dishonest odds. There's like, it's hard to find actual transparency in the rates. I mean, they can claim the rates all they want, but it's not like a physical game where if you buy a pack and you obtain a dud pack in there, that dud pack is removed from the possible pool. That's not the same in gacha games. It's just a nightmare. You can look it up. Like people who spend like $10,000, $70,000 playing these things. I haven't heard of somebody playing $70,000 in like a year to play a trading card game. Maybe in like a lifetime, if they've played Magic from the beginning, maybe they've spent $70,000, but it's crazy. But yeah, I think that's all I really need to talk about on booster boxes. I could try to do a bit more about, booster box philosophy, my personal philosophy. But yeah, next episode gets rid of all of this conundrum that we've talked about today. So until next time, this is Kodak signing off.